The other thing I'd like to do this morning is welcome those folks who are out in Cyberland who are listening. And we just want to invite you to come here to Unity of Richmond if you're in the area. And so I just want to thank you for watching and being a part of our service. And we bless you as you bless us. Thank you so much. There was a minister who was brought into a church to do a revival. Now, some of you know what I'm talking about. How many people are familiar with revivals? Oh, yeah. And so anyway, he started the week off, and by the time he got to Sunday, he was really feeling strong. I mean, things were happening. He'd been brought in to get the membership coming out more, and they had doubled in size of services, and he was excited about that. So he decided he really wanted to get to the people, and he said, here's what I want you to know, folks, that what you've got to do if you want to grow this church is that you've got to walk, and I mean walk. And somebody in the back said, preacher, we're ready to walk. And then the next thing that happened, I gave him a little boulder. He said, now, if you really want to grow this church, you got to be ready to run, and I mean run. And several people said, preacher, we're ready to run. Let's run. And then he said, wow, that's pretty good, to himself. And he said, so here's the real truth, though. If you really want this church to move, you got to fly. You got to fly high, okay? And a whole chorus of people said, we're ready to fly. We're ready to fly. He said, okay, here's my opportunity. And he said, if you want to fly, you got to raise more money. Kind of like this, silence. One little voice in the back said, we're ready to run, preacher, we're ready to run. I'm not talking about money this morning, but I thought I'd share that with you, okay? What I'm talking about is how to be a creative being. You know, I was looking on the internet, and as I was doing research, and I came up with one of Martin Luther King's services that he did, one of his speeches, on how to be more abundant and how to create abundance in your life. And so I'm using a little bit of what he said and what I feel as I share this message with you this morning. And he said that, you know, well, he didn't say this, I'm saying this, that it's a very common thing to see people wandering into the world looking for life. Where is life? What's happening? Why don't I feel like I'm living life fully? And what's happening, you see, is that what they've done is they've gotten existence mixed up with life. We all are existing. But some people just kind of wander around existing, expecting something to happen. When what happens is that when we start to create life, then life becomes alive. We become alert. We become anxious about it. And I mean anxious in a positive way. We become excited is a better word about life itself. We start to understand how we're to show up, the differences we can make. And as we do that, we begin to understand that we're not here to exist, we're here to create life itself. Jesus said, I have come so that you might live life more abundantly. John 10:10. And so what happens is that as you find life, as you understand that you are here to create life, is that you learn to step into those things which create an abundant life. You learn to become part of who you are and what you are, and not let somebody else do it. Martin Luther King said, the first thing we have to do to have an abundant life is that we have to create an opportunity which brings abundance to us because we give ourselves a purpose and a cause that transcends ourselves. I was wondering in 1954 if he was thinking about that as he spoke with us, about what was coming, you know? Because what we have to do is learn how to transcend ourselves and have a purpose that brings us into being all we can be, all that we are. It doesn't have to be a big purpose. It doesn't have to be a huge purpose. It doesn't have to be something the whole world sees, and for some people, that's what happens. But for most of us, it means stepping up to life as it is and taking on the opportunities that are presented to us. Some of the purposes we need to transcend, I think, is when we go to work. We need to transcend a purpose that says, I am at work, and this is a great opportunity. We have to be willing to go to work with the Christ light shining. We have to be willing to go to work even if we don't like it and act as though we love it. See, that's transcending your existence. It's bringing your work into being who you are and what you are. So you go to work to be the best that you can be. The other thing is that a purpose could be in the home, that we are in our homes as spiritual beings. And as spiritual beings, we guide and direct what's happening in the home. We work with our partners. We work with our children. We work with our relatives. We work with our parents in a loving, caring way. We communicate. We show that we care. We show the love we talk about. We step into that role because we're living life more abundantly. We're transcending our purpose for a bigger purpose. And then another place that we can transcend it, and they mentioned Lynn this morning, is as a volunteer. Volunteering in the community, volunteering in this church, volunteering however you want to spend your time, giving of your time. That can make a huge difference. But as a volunteer, what you want to do is step into the creativity of it, not just show up to show up. Not show up because nobody else will do it. But show up because you care. Show up because you want to be a part of what's happening. Show up because you want to make a difference in the community in the way that you choose. And as we do that, we then start to transcend ourselves and create purpose that has meaning and understanding. And the other place that we can transcend purpose and transcend ourselves and find purpose is in the idea of spiritual growth. Something as simple as that. But really, it's not that simple. Spiritual growth takes commitment. Spiritual growth says, I'm ready to continue to grow. One of the things that some of you know is I teach a class online, and it's understanding unity principles, basically. And what I find, I've taught it 8 times now, 7 weeks each time. I find every class teaches me something different. Teaches me another way to look at a particular situation. Teaches me how to feel a little differently about a situation as I grow into it. Sometimes we look at classes that are coming up and say, oh, I did that one. Got that checked off the list. Never have to take that one again. We have Prosperity Plus going on right now, as some of you probably know and some may not know. And it's about towards the end of it. And Sheila's doing a great job. And we have 6 people in the class. So there must be another 160 who say, I had that before. I don't need any more prosperity in my life. Everything's fine. I have a sense of purpose. I got it all together. And I would say to each of you, reconsider that. That spiritual growth is ongoing, and sometimes it's repetitious in order to really get the basics, to continue to grow, to see yourself, to see God, to see all that you are in a different light, in a different way. And so our spiritual growth gives us this opportunity to move forward. So how do we create, if you would, this opportunity? And it is looking at life in such a way that we don't judge the size of what we're doing. Let me give you a little poem by Douglas Malloch. He says, if you can be a pine on the top of the hill, if you can't be a pine on the top of the hill, be a shrub in the valley, but be the best shrub on the side of the hill. Be a bush if you can't be a tree. If you can't be a highway, just be a trail. If you can't be the sun, be a star. It isn't by size that you win or you fail. Be the best of whatever you are. Don't worry about where you are, but what you are in life. The second thing that we look at is the idea of dualism. Most of us, from time to time, and maybe a lot, see life in duality. There's black and white, right and wrong, good and bad. There's this opportunity to judge others, even to judge ourselves, and I think a lot of people do that. And so we see life from that perspective, when the truth is that what Jesus taught is that we can see life as oneness, being one with one another. Showing up in such a way that we share our oneness, that we look through our stuff and embrace each other with our love. That's what we have the opportunity to do as we look at life from the perspective of, let me see here, sorry, from the perspective of oneness rather than dualism. Martin Luther King said, "The isness of our present natures is out of proportion with the eternal oughtness forever confronting us." Now, in unity, we would say our wholeness. We'd say our allness, okay? We don't use the word ought most of the time, except with ourselves. So I just honor that it really is that we get confused, and so we judge ourselves from our isness and our oughtness. And what we really need to do is understand that wherever we are, whatever's happening in our life, we have a choice to make a difference and change our mind. We have a choice to stay where we are if that's what we feel we need to do. We have a choice to change our lives in such a way that we get out of dualism and we get into the focusing on our oneness. You know, when we focus on dualness, we start to split and separate. When we focus on oneness, it's interesting. We can really just see through what's going on and saying, it's okay. I still behold the Christ in you. I still love you. I still care about you. That's what oneness can do for us. That's what oneness does here at Unity of Richmond. St. Augustine had an interesting statement. He said, "Lord, make me pure, but not yet." He was kind of attached to not being pure, okay? And so, the other thing that we look at from the standpoint of eliminating dualistic philosophy is that we have to understand ourselves and others a little bit, I believe. And there was a book called The Four Agreements. Many of you have probably read it. How many people read the Four Agreements are familiar with? Right. Okay? So I'm just going to remind you what it says in one part. What it says is that you and I have a book of laws that is created for us by those that have power over us. It's created by our parents. It's created by our teachers. It's created by our ministers. It's created in a lot of different ways. And that you create this book of laws. Now, all the laws aren't bad, but most of them aren't for your higher self. And so what we have to learn to do is understand that we are guided and directed at a time by these book of laws. It gets into what you ought to do, what you should do. And we also, because of that book of laws, we become our judge. We judge ourselves based on that. And so if I don't stop being in alignment, I'm out of alignment, now I'm judging myself. And then not only that, I have a jury. And I am the jury. And the jury says, "You're guilty?" And I feel bad about that. When the truth is I'm not guilty at all, but I just think I am. And then there's a prosecutor. And the prosecutor is saying, "You are guilty." And you're doing it to yourself because you're pointing at your own inner self. The inner self is never guilty. It's just the outer understanding of that you've been trained to think about. The inner self is always in alignment. The inner self is something you're never separated from, you only feel like you're separated from. And so what we learn to do is we learn to step into that consciousness. We learn to break free of that bondage of what we think we should be and become what we want to create ourselves to be. And we have that opportunity. So, we have the opportunity to transcend ourselves through a possibility, through a dream, through an idea. We have the opportunity, in essence, to not live in dualism, but to focus on our oneness. And then the third thing is that we must do there's a third thing, is that the third thing that we must do to create the abundant life, I ought to read it, is to choose having an abiding spiritual faith. And I talked about that just a little bit while ago. You know, H.G. Wells was right when he said the man who is not spiritual begins at nowhere and ends at nothing. Now, I happen to believe that none of us end at nothing, but we feel that way. That's a true sense of separation, true sense I'm not on target. So, what are three key powers that we can use to create this abundant life, to change the way we're thinking, to see ourselves differently? In Unity, we have 12 different powers that we talk about. We use these to become stronger, to grow in spiritual strength, to show up demonstrate the characteristics that we call God, of God. And so the three that I picked this morning I want to share with you is, first of all, faith. That we must have the faith, and we've got plenty of faith, but we must direct our faith in such a way that we understand that whatever it is we are focusing and believing takes place. So what I have to learn to do, and this is what faith is not believing what I see, but seeing what I believe. Faith is the evidence of that which is unseen coming into being. And it happens for all of us. So we have to use our faith in order to move ourselves forward and to believe there is a possibility of change. To believe that I can bring into my life anything I so desire that's positive and loving and caring and can make a difference in other people's lives. So we learn to direct our faith, and that's really important. It starts with hope. I have a hope that I can change. Then faith is saying, I can change. I will change. I am changing. I have changed. All of those things we have to buy into. And as we buy into those things, another thing that happens for us through faith is that we have the power of imagination. Now, you know, what we're taught is there is divine mind, which creates divine ideas. These divine ideas flow through spirit to each of us individually. And how does a divine idea come about? I can't tell you that. I wish I could. But I can hint around about it, okay? That each of you, how many people do not have any thought at all? Okay? Just blank. No. We all have thoughts. Now, how many people direct those thoughts so they become the power and use the power of imagination so that they create an idea? And that idea says, okay, I'm ready. And the power of imagination means that I create an idea that not only do I just think about, not do I dream about, but I actually embrace it. And in embracing it, I feel it. I feel like it's already done. In embracing it, I fall in love with it. And I feel unconditional love. In embracing that idea, I even smell it and feel it. And when I can do that, you see, what I'm starting to do is take the five senses in this world that I live in and transfer them in a way so that I bring about that which I am imagining. So it changes my life. And so the power of imagination. And then the third power that I want to mention is the power of will. Now, I'm not talking about willpower from the perspective of whatever I want, I'm going to get. That's called force. That's not will. Will has everything to do with depending upon the power of the Spirit of that which created us to move us through and bring us into a new idea, to bring it into being. You know, when you have a great new idea, you go home and you share it, and the person starts laughing, or the person says, that's never going to happen, or you're just dreaming. Your coworkers say, that's the craziest thing I ever heard of. Whatever happens, you've got to ignore that. And what will does is give you the ability to ignore those things that are in the way so that you can step forward and make a change. And as you step forward and make that change, then people start to say, oh, I want to be part of that. People say, oh, I'm willing to contribute to that. How can I be involved in that? And the resources start to come your way. However, one of the things we have to learn to do, the difference between force and willpower, is that my ego wants me to force what I am dreaming about into being. Willpower says listen to others so that you can bring it into being in the highest and best form possible. Just recently I was at Unity Village for a couple of days, and we were having a meeting on how to bring Unity Village and Unity Worldwide Ministries, which are actually two separate organizations, into oneness, because we really believe that's important. We had a plan. I had a plan. And what we decided was to trash the plan because it wouldn't work. And I had to listen to that because I wrote the plan. Going into the meeting, I knew this was going to come up, so therefore I was not defensive, which is saying something, okay? But anyway, what happened is that we had the most productive meeting we've had in a year, where we really changed the direction. We listened to each other. Everybody got out of their ego. And I mean, they really did. And they were willing to listen. I mean, we had some things happen as we were trying to do this, where one person in one organization would say something, not meaning anything harm by it, and the other person in another organization said, I'm not going to do that. I'm opposed to that. That might mean my job. Oh. And people stepped out of those roles totally and cooperated. And in 2 days, we came up with what we believe is a plan that's really going to work and make a difference for both unities, whether they combine or not. And so we have to listen. We have to pray. We have to meditate. We have to step into what is happening in such a way that we don't let our ego get in the way, because we have the plan, you know? That's what can happen. Instead, let the plan evolve, and then willpower through the process of the creative process will take place naturally, and it will affirm what you're doing. So 3 things: faith, imagination, and willpower. Again, life is not something that you find. Life is something that you create. Jesus said, I have come to teach you how to live life more abundantly. I've come to teach you how to live life more abundantly. I want to give you an assignment after today's service. And what I want you to do, if you go to work this afternoon or whether you go to work tomorrow morning, whenever you go to work again, I want you to show up loving what you're doing. Now, some of you, that won't be hard. For some of you, say, you're kidding me. I want you to really step in and say, I love what I'm doing today. And I'm going to show up that way, and I'm going to give everything I can. I'm going to be the best bush, the best trail, the best highway, the best pine tree on top of the mountain you've ever seen. And I am going to take this on, and I'm going to treat my fellow employees in the same way. So do that this week and see what happens. And do it every day, not just on Monday, okay? Don't give up on Tuesday. Use your will to let you guide you. But step into it all week long and see if you don't feel better about yourself. And maybe you'll just have one of those ideas that will make a difference in the company that you work with or the organization you work for. And if it's yourself, God bless you. So thank you.